Welcome, Levitical Kingdom privateers, to another C2k report. Welcome back. I want to welcome in Terrestrial Radio, welcome in Revelation Radio, Shake and Wake Radio, those of you watching on YouTube and Rumble. Anywhere you happen to be catching us, welcome. Tonight, got an exciting show. I think you're going to really be pleased. You're going to want to definitely stay till the end on this one. Let's go ahead and get our intro out of the way, and we'll be right back.
We have given up ground as a church, as an ecclesia, as a body of Christ. We have given it away. It's not been taken from us. We have given it up.
Babylon has no authority. When I talk about schemes like registration, schemes are created out of greed, envy, and fear.
We've read the end of the book. We know where the victory lies, and it lies in Jesus Christ.
This is what I want to do with fear. Okay? We don't need it anymore. We are the ecclesia.
This is a clash of two kingdoms.
Because there is a science to registration. Did you know registration is an ancient thing?
The Bible is replete with language that is martial, with language that is governmental, with language that is political.
By the way, that word religion doesn't mean Buddhist, Islam, doesn't mean any of those things. It means Jesus freaks and holy rollers.
We can mix church and politics, because my Bible tells me that the government will be on his shoulders.
All right. Tonight, guys, we're discussing a truly essential, actually existential threat to the kingdom. The kingdom of Jesus the Christ is being attacked in many ways by this perilous system. But tonight we're going to talk about topics that are really disturbing, very uncomfortable for the ecclesia overall to talk about. I think it's maybe a bad thing that we don't talk about these things more often. But tonight we are going to. These are things that must be discussed. You've heard us talk about self-governing. You've heard us talk about administrating your property. And tonight you're going to see the very reason why it's important and actually essential that you tether yourself to the scripture in your self-governing process. In a moment, you're going to hear a very special guest summarize the content of his new book. Roll the footage.
Millions of young people are falling victim to an all-out Luciferian war being waged over their minds, souls, and very lives. It is beyond insidious and far worse than anything that decent people could ever imagine. From the far-reaching sex trade industry and predators exploiting an overburdened foster care system, to educators attempting to normalize the evils of pedophilia. This war involves corrupt government officials, institutionalized religious leaders, Hollywood elites, and unknown wealthy bureaucrats who prey upon society's most vulnerable, our children. What's worse is this massive crisis, hiding in plain sight, is being fueled by a porn industry that 57% of our pastors and 65% of our youth pastors admit to indulging in. I believe the Spirit of God is going to bring judgment to His people, in particular, for turning a blind eye to these atrocities, while at the same time, He is illuminating this darkness for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. The new book, Innocence Shattered, Dismantling the Insidious War Against Our Children, uncovers how this spiritual assault is destroying an entire generation. It is a call to action, challenging all of us to rise up for our nation's most vulnerable, break the cycle of abuse, and stand in the gap for the least of these.
All right, so you heard that. Randy, I'm going to welcome you in so you can introduce our special speaker tonight. They know who it is now. They've seen his face. They've heard his words. But Randy, would you introduce our good guest, Joe Horn?
Absolutely, Rick. It's my indeed great honor and pleasure to do so. And as you said, they've already seen the book Innocence Shattered. Uh, if you don't have it, get it. If you don't get it, you're going to die. Okay, no. But Joe Horn, I've got his bio up here, and I can tell you everything that's in there. You know that he's a best-selling author, an award-winning film producer. He did Time Bomb, Unlocking Eden. He is a board-certified holistic health practitioner. All those things. But I'm going to get off of his bio because I want to tell you about my friend Joe Horn, my brother Joe Horn. I'm not going to tell you the story of how we came to meet. And while I'm talking, I'm going to show you this is not a one-hit wonder. This is a prolific author, Joe Horn. These are just some of his books, and it's amazing the expertise that Joe has acquired, because Joe is an individual, as I've come to know him, he doesn't think that good is good enough for the kingdom or our king. Excellent is what's deserving of our king. He is a master at so many things. He didn't learn to play the guitar. He mastered the guitar. He didn't learn about dog training. He mastered dog training. He didn't learn about film production. He mastered film production. And some of these films still available at Skywatch TV. But I got to tell you, the reason I'm so excited about Joe, if it was not for Joe Horn, this would not even have happened. This is Storm Shelter Randy Conway Poems. Joe Horn is a dear friend, a brother. We don't get to talk as often as we'd like, but when we do, we make up for lost time because we have been known to talk deep into the night, for sure. It is my great honor, pleasure, and it is going to be a honor and pleasure for you and the listening audience to meet my friend, Joe Artis Horn.
Hey, Randy.
Hey, Joe.
You know what? I'm just going to start off. That's my favorite bio. don't read the long, boring one that nobody cares about. Just talk about your friend, right?
Right. Well, Joe, I'm going to start off real quick here because we're going to talking about Innocence Shattered.
Yeah.
And I want to tell people out there, before you get into telling us what's inside this book, you start off with this story about Billy. And it's more than introducing a character to the rest of the book. You literally hit us right between the eyes with a 2x4 from the first page. I mean, it's stand back because he hits batter up at that moment from the introduction even. And you hit even harder by the end of the book with the appendix, which is, it's much like the call we do here on C2k Report when we say the ecclesia needs you and it needs infrastructure. Because if we, God's people, had the appropriate infrastructure, what you're going to share tonight would not be happening to these children because they would have another place to go. So you're going to talk about the middle. I done told them about the beginning and the end. So we're going to talk about the middle of it. But Joe, 7 years ago, and I know you know about this, I would not have any YouTubes on YouTube if it were not for Joe Horn. Little known fact, Joe dedicated 8 hours of one day to teach me how to create videos and create the YouTube channel. But 7 years ago, I put up a YouTube poem called "The Loss of Innocence." Can you believe it's been that long?
That's what I'm thinking. I literally am thinking, is he really 7 years ago?
Yes.
Wow.
The Loss of Innocence. And at the final slide, the final image, if you will, on that video, I put up some statistics. I said that there were 800,000 missing children reported annually, and 88% of the trafficked children were in care of social services or foster care. And every 40 seconds, a child becomes missing or abducted. 25,000 runaways in 2017. 1 in 7 is a victim of trafficking. So I'm just curious as we go on tonight, how much those numbers have changed. Because if we were as a church and all the mega churches I see around the country were doing our job, those numbers should have diminished. but I'm interested to see, what you're going to share with us tonight. So that's my statement. Here's my questions. As you enter into this discussion, and then Rick's probably got some questions he wants to give you, and we're going to let you run for a bit. I want to know more about the funnel that is foster care and CPS, the literal funnel for trafficking. Next question. What are the methods of introducing the indoctrination of our children into the school system, such as the program you talk about, Amaze? And what I garnered from that, looking at the Amaze program, was that the creators, the planners, literally know how to use the Babylonian paper magic system, the judicial injustice system. Literally, it is an injustice system, not a justice system. In order, even though they're the responsible party for it, they're the creators and planners, they have managed to set themselves out of the way of being liable. They have no liability for the programs or materials they're putting out, and yet teachers or school boards or others are becoming responsible and facing charges, lawsuits, liability. Yet the creators and planners are getting around accepting any liability for that. And I want to know, if you feel led to bring that into the picture, because we have all these elected officials, school boards and commissioners and blah, 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 blah. And I say all the time, we've been holding elections for over 200 years. Have any of them made anything any better yet? It is the parents who should be the liable parties. It is the parents who should be the responsible parties. But yet, those who are responsible escape liability. Now then, I just saw today, Joe, that on October 17th or thereabout, there were 122 kids rescued in Florida. Praise the Lord, right? Isn't that great? But based on the numbers that I just shared with you, that still leaves 799,878 still missing. And I saw this big pat me on the back party of these 122. And yeah, it should be out there in the media. People should know this. And I'm not trying to throw them under the bus. I'm just trying to make a point that 122 kids, and we throw a big party. And it included people, they put on this big show. It utilized the U.S. Marshals, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, Department of Juvenile Justice, the Department of Children and Families, the Bay Care Behavioral Health System, More to Life, the National Center for Missing and Endangered Children, the Florida FBI, the state prosecuting attorney. They utilized 11 sheriff's offices, 4 police departments, 25 NGOs, and over 200 unnamed partners. And the children that they rescued were between the ages of 2 and 17, and 6 adults were arrested. Now look at the number of people it took to get 122 kids and arrest 6 adults, the sheer amount of money that would have taken. And folks, your tax dollars were paying for all of that. And the kids that were rescued were worth every penny of it. But my question is, those 122 kids, are they getting returned right back into the same funnel, right back into the same system that let them become missing in the first place? And folks, if you want to do really something to change the culture of the world in regards to missing children, your money's better spent at supporting Whispering Ponies Ranch. Whispering Ponies Ranch is really doing something on the ground, boots on the ground. You're going to hear more about that as we go on. I don't want to take any more of Joe's time. I just wanted to throw those things out there just as the starting gun for what we're going to do tonight. We do need infrastructure so that these children aren't left to the courts and left to the system. The ecclesia should have its own foster care system and its own court system, and we have the ability to do it. But people are doubtful. We're growing slowly, but we're still growing, and we are making inroads right now into rescue of older adults and literally rescue of children this week through the Holy Nation. So, Joe, I'm going to allow Rick a moment to express anything he wants to, and we're going to turn it over to you.
I'm good. I'm good. I appreciate your questions, Randy, and I'm just looking forward to what Joe's going to bring forth. I'll be taking notes, and I'll be ready to come back. Go ahead. Have you ever wished you could get a one-of-a-kind, high-quality knife made by caring hands instead of a mass-produced piece of tin? Robert's love for bladesmithing began at a young age when he met some experienced smiths and was amazed by the ages-old traditions of handcrafting metal and steel into stunning, functional artwork. When he first hit the hot steel with a hammer in 1986, he was forever hooked. Nearly 4 decades later, his passion is still alive and well. Robert's love and appreciation of the marvel of God's awesome creation grows even more every day. For Robert, making useful heirloom tools for others is an honor and a pleasure too. Every one of Robert's knives are one of a kind, handcrafted, one by one. Following long traditions of old school craftsmanship, he uses simple carbon steel for his knife, which epitomize the best quality steel has to offer, including ease of sharpening, keenness of edge, incredible strength, and great edge holding ability. With proper care, your Robert Gardner built knife can be passed down through your house for generations. Remember that iron sharpens iron, and may the double-edged sword, which is the word of God, make your path plain before you, now and forever. Robert Gardner, bladesmith, is a mission of Gardner Ministries. Gardner Ministries at yahoo.com. That's Gardner Ministries at yahoo.com.
Well, so Randy, you made several comments, you asked several questions. I'm sitting here trying to index all of the things you may have wanted a response to, because you just said a whole lot. And I found myself at the end of that thinking, Randy doesn't need me here. He already knows what he could have just did the show. Like, keep going. I'm sitting here. Go on.
Well, I read like this book that came from Defender Public, and this book, and so I'm sorry.
No, you said a whole lot of stuff. Some of it was commentary. Some of it was framed in a question. I'll do the best I can to react to all the things I think you wanted a response on. First of all, you mentioned numbers from years ago in your series of poetry videos, the end of the videos with the numbers that you had asserted years ago. What I can tell you is the answer to the question is, are the numbers improving, remains a mystery. And here's why. Because whether you're talking about, and you know this, whether you're talking about the Polaris Project, the MEC, which is the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Shared Hope International, the list of the number one aggregators that we rely on the very most for any data that is available. And notice that I said for data that is available, because a lot of these missing children end up classified as runaways, not trafficking victims or forced into prostitution. They're classified as runaway, right? Because of, there's a lack of investigation, or maybe HIPAA laws conceal, medical records that officers need to be able to probe in order to find whereabouts, or maybe a history of taking medications, or where they've gone, or what home they were placed in before they came up missing. So between privacy laws and then inadequate search efforts because of a lack of funding / people, and I understand what you're thinking probably right now. This is exactly why Ecclesia needs to do this, because the government squanders literally billions of dollars on stuff that only rationalizes their own existence while serving almost no one. Right? We'd be way better off in most cases them just leaving us alone and staying out of our lives, as opposed. Wasn't it Ronald Reagan that said, "I never want to hear the words, I'm here to help and I'm with the government,"
right,
or something like that, right?
Right.
The last and final fatal words. But the point is, the people that we rely on to even give us an estimate of the number of children that are dead or missing from just the foster care system, or the ones that are being trafficked from the population that are not a part of any system, place it, and I'll just place it at about 11 to 12 per day children from the foster care system alone trafficked or forced into prostitution. That's an aggregate based on all of the numbers that they've aggregated, those three organizations. When you go into the general population, it can be much higher. And then some of them place it at up to 55 per day, either come up missing or in forced prostitution. So some of these kids, they know exactly where they're at, so they're not listed as runaway, but they're living not with guardians or parents. They're living with captors that are tormenting them, or maybe Randy, they've gotten sideways with evil people and they have to square a debt. So they will use the child in exchange for
as an
favors,
asset.
as an asset. That's right. a meth deal gone wrong or something else. They're having fun with the child. Why not farm him or her out? They have no compassion for this as a human being. It's a plaything. It's a commodity. It's an asset. It only exists to be used like a commodity, passed around. Does that make sense?
It does, and it should be an embarrassment to the church, to the followers of Christ, because I threw up Shadowland a while ago, and Jacob Boykins, if I said his name, Jakubuyans has been on Skywatch several times. There are people who have been shouting this message. Mine was up 7 years ago. I took a little bit different approach. I wasn't looking at those being trafficked. I was looking at kids being enticed out of good homes, not trafficked, but they're enticed out of good homes until they're in a place they cannot control, and then you gain the loss of innocence, and who knows what happens to them. But yeah, the church should be embarrassed. Why you're doing this book right now, it should have already been done and taken care of. There should be no need for this book right now.
I did Skywatch TV programs literally 2 weeks ago, Randy, and I shocked everybody because everyone that follows our career at Skywatch TV knows about Whispering Ponies Ranch, which is our charitable ministry. You've been there many times. We serve the very children that we're talking about tonight. These are the ones that have been pulled out of trafficking. These are the ones that are in foster care. They've been abused in every unimaginable way that malevolent actors can even daydream. Okay. And we'll just leave it at that. We've looked into the eyes of Innocence Shattered, the title of my book. This is very personal to us. This isn't that we went on Google and started doing research and thought, hey, let's be child advocates. Like, we're working with these children. And one of the things you learn right away is that placements are difficult. So when children are in multiples or have multiple siblings, they're pulled out of homes where abuse is known, and then they're placed in separate homes because placing multiples is difficult or non-existent. We see that every year at Whispering Ponies Ranch. A lot of these kids, man, have been the sort that have been locked in dog cages or hidden under the beds from real life monsters that live just down the hall. And the only constant they've ever known is their own sibling. So you can imagine, even if you were a person in blue doing what you knew to be right by removing these kids from harmful nightmares like that, where are you taking them? You're taking them to an overburdened system. You're now separating from the only biological human that they've ever known. 50% of those kids, once they're placed in foster care, Randy, will never see loved ones again. They'll never see their aunts or uncles or grandpas or brothers or siblings. Can you imagine the kind of trauma? This is why foster kids are 4 to 5 times more likely to kill themselves or unalive themselves than children who have come up in normal homes. And this, by the way, is only where abuse is known. This is only, and then you look into the system. I can see it in Randy's eyes. He already knows this. But then you look into the system that aggregates these kids and you realize the gauntlet in a lot of cases to even get these kids in the system can be arduous because of overcapacity, because of difficulty with placement. So think of the number of kids who are in abuse cycles that can't even get out of their biological homes. So that's why when I say we're going to deal with just the foster care system tonight, and it's almost monopoly money numbers. Most people can't even wrap their heads around how it's even possible, and yet it's happening right here in the United States. Now, make of Donald Trump what you will in terms of his politics. I will just make a statement, and then I'll let your audience decide what they make of this. There's parts of this I appreciate very much, but led by Melania Trump, I'm sure you guys heard this last week, the Fostering the Future executive order. Have you heard about this?
I did not.
Okay, so led by Melania Trump, Donald Trump just signed an executive order called Fostering the Future. Now, what this executive order hopes to accomplish, and this is the stated position of this new executive order, it wants to modernize the foster care system. It wants to use AI technology to surveil and hopefully reach out through networks that have been developed in all of the states here in the United States to help better place children into homes with more accountability. So I'm a huge fan of that, right? It also hopes to protect and expand the role of faith-based organizations. So instead of the government being hostile to, let's say, Ecclesia, Asta, or Whispering Ponies Ranch or Skywatch TV, they would be warmer to our plight, even though we're a religious organization where typically they don't want to mix politics and religion, right? Unless you've got lobbyists and it
Right.
works in their favor, right? It also wants to create a national online platform for the whereabouts of these children so that they can hopefully reduce the number of missing children or the ones that come up missing. And then it strengthens support for foster kids aging out of the system so that they've had some vocational training or maybe some opportunities to learn an education or something that they can do with their lives once they're out of the system. So I like on paper what this this executive order wants to try to do. Now, you can do your own reading on this later. Here's my thing. Administrations change and veto executive orders. And I want to lead by saying, while I don't want to disparage anybody that was behind that EO that may have benevolent intentions, I am not going to disparage anyone that's raising this to a national platform. This whole conversation around missing children, those exploited in the foster care system, which we're going to get into in just a second. I'm not going to disparage the good people that are trying really hard to use their levers in politics and in Congress and the Senate to do something good for foster kids. I'm not going to disparage those people. What I want to say is that the foster care system, Randy, Rick, is a side effect of a spiritual problem. And you cannot legislate away, I know that you know this, cannot legislate away a spiritual problem. You cannot outlaw sin, right? And you can't mandate humanitarian work or charity. I mandate that you take what you've worked hard for and give it to someone else that refuses to work, right? Like we've seen this fail. It's socialism, communism. These ideas have failed every time that they're deployed. Every person that's ever come along that has thought they could implement this by decree or mandate, you see those society immediately fall into depravity and unilateral control over a kingship, right? So I again say I'm not disparaging anyone that wants to raise the dilemma of the foster care system to a national conversation. And if he's acting altruistically, and I leave that up to your viewers, because I don't know Donald Trump personally, I will give him the benefit of the doubt and believe that he and his wife believe these are good maneuvers to do something to stand in the gap for children. And maybe somebody in their administration has been listening to people like you guys. Maybe they've heard Yaku Booyans on Fox News with Laura Ingraham again this week, who's a dear friend of mine. Maybe someone saw some of the presentations we've been doing and the book that we've put out and the Rescue Us television series, and somebody has thought to themselves, this is getting so obvious and so public that we're kind of beclowning ourselves not to at least posture and appear to be doing something at the very least. Does that make sense?
I would agree with you that I wouldn't throw people under the bus for bringing this to national attention.
Sure.
But for me, I have zero faith in this governing system to be able to actually do it. Actually, but the fact that they're bringing it to light is good.
And here's the thing: I would assert that this is again a side effect of what most of politics, in my view, for whatever it's worth, is people doing this, and they stick it up in the air and they're waiting to see which way the wind's blowing. Which way is the wind blowing? What will get me reelected? What will gain me favor so that I have the political capital to be able to execute my administrative priorities? But again, I kind of don't really care as long as the outcome helps the children. What I don't want to see is somehow this new incorporation of AI and everything else. And I'm totally withholding judgment. So I don't want this to get spliced and diced and what I'm saying to be mischaracterized. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt that these are honest to goodness, good guy efforts to do something good for children, okay? But let's assume that's true. Again, administrations change, executive orders get canceled or rearranged. And so, could we be faced with a more sophisticated pipeline? Because what we've seen historically is that foster care system, which is why people are clamoring for reform and are going to be very angry with me if they feel like I'm disparaging the only thing we've seen recently come out of government that looks like a potential answer to some of this. But I kind of want to do this, Randy. I kind of want to say I've got my eye on this, and I want to see in a couple of years if the numbers bear out credible third-party resources saying, yes, this has improved the foster care dilemma. Because let me give you just a snapshot of where we're at right now in 2025 prior to the Fostering the Future executive order. Are you ready for this?
Go.
And I want to say, in the hands of government, I join you. Even if the intentions today were to do something benevolent, what does this program look like in, let's say, a decade from now, if the Lord tarries and we're all still here, right? Have we only sophisticated a way to make it appear more like we're doing good things for kids with
Are
a
these
class?
good actors actually that good actors role
Yes.
playing?
A soul no ground, a deep, deep love. A brother smiles, pure as a dove. A sister plans all kinds of fun. A father laughs with anticipation. The world's cold, hearts are spewing hate. They say the child you birth belongs to the state. You delivered a boy, but they want to make him a girl. If you don't comply, they'll make your whole life swirl. Children are an inheritance from the Lord. They are a reward from Him, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. They will not be put to shame. Children are created in the image of God. They should not be encouraged to commit a fraud against a life of great purpose and charity. Children are a blessing. Children are an inheritance from the Lord. They are a reward from Him, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. They will not be put to shame. Children are an inheritance from the Lord. They are the reward from Him, like arrows in the hand of a warrior. They will not be put to shame.
And I'm not saying that future disasters should not stop good people today from trying,
Right.
but I do believe one of the healthy, positive side effects to what we're seeing is I think it's a response to outcry. I think even though this conversation, innocence shattered, the trafficking of children, forced into prostitution, their lives deleted before they've even had a chance to begin, I do believe that movies like The Sound of Freedom, I do believe that culture is kind of, post-COVID. There's a kind of an exodus from what you and I call the Babylonian system. You're seeing it in medicine. You're seeing it in culture. You're seeing it in schools. Parents rising up because they've been trying now for the last 30 years to normalize inappropriate SA relationships between adults and children in the classroom, to
Right.
create an entire generation of complicit victims of abuse that don't even know that they're being abused, to normalize that. You understand what I'm saying?
I absolutely
To get
do.
kids when they're so young, their pineal glands haven't even finished forming, And we're coaching them through whether they're boy or girl, whether they have a mother or a father or a they or a them or a who or a what's it. That life can be almost like a choose your own adventure book. Do you remember those? Where there's not a specific outcome. You get to turn the page and choose which part of the adventure you want to aim at next. That life is somehow a choose your own adventure reality. You're God, I'm God, we're all God. To normalize relationships, mature ones between adults and children. And I'm sanitizing that in case this ends up on YouTube. They don't take your channel down. To normalize RAPE so that you have complicit victims of abuse. They're coming for our kids by way of AI technology. We're talking about free downloadable mobile apps that are designed to be companions to your kids, to walk your children through all of life's dilemmas without mother or father, that are there to counsel them on important things like, should I take my life? Is that an appropriate response to the depression that I feel? Oh, AI companion. Does this make sense? To replace the family construct. Right?
Well, they're not only going to replace the family
cartoons.
construct.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, they're not only going to replace the family construct. They're going to replace any religious faith-based construct as well, because you can now get an AI Jesus that you can talk to every day, or any saint you pick. So, yeah, what world are they coming into?
They're using, large corporations are using cartoons to normalize worldviews that should make every normal Christian almost vomit. These are major multi-billion-dollar, very purposed content creators that are aimed for your children. They want your kids completely unimpressed by your God, Randy. They want them seduced into this who's it, what's it, and they want these kids to reject their own God-given gender. I'm sitting here editing in real time just in case this ends up on some of these platforms where
putting litter boxes in public school restrooms. Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness. To give you just a snapshot of where we're at prior to, and we will have to see if some of this improves under the Fostering the Future. But right now, as we're sitting here doing this podcast, approximately 420,000 children are already actively living in the foster care system. I'll say it again. 420,000 children. Now, right out of the gate, I want to preface this by saying, again, those are only known cases of abuse where you hope that the system has pulled these children out of homes in order to save them. That's the way that the system is supposed to work. That's the way it is supposed to work. Now, would it shock you, though, if I told you that 90% of these kids, Rick, are statistically guaranteed to experience not one, but 2 to 5 forms of abuse? This could be that their hands are held on tops of stovetops as a form of air quote discipline. This could be that they're locked in dog cages. They're put in closets where the doorknobs are greased and left for hours at a time, days at a time without food. And the only meal that they might get might be if they go to public school that day. These are kids that may be whipped with bicycle chains or hit with 2x4s. Is this making sense? And again, under captors, not guardians, that are trying to normalize what is essentially their molestation every day so that they don't even know that it's happening. Because kids that understand what's happening talk out. This is where medications can be misused and involved, getting children to be sedated so that they won't protest, taking kids, never taking them to the doctor because they're afraid of discovery, what might come out if bruises are discovered or other parts of anatomy are stretched or deranged. Is this making sense? I have a friend that who has worked with Donald Trump's administration in 2016 in cracking down at the border and also doing a lot of anti-trafficking training with law enforcement and people in the government. He told me in, I want to say it was 2017-ish, he said, Joe, one of the most heartbreaking scenarios I ever found myself was during a sting when we went in to pull these kids out of captivity. One of the youngest victims I was ever personally involved in rescuing was a little baby, the age of 2 years old. And this next part I'm going to sanitize greatly. But he said, what's really going to bust you up is that this baby was being purchased so many times a day, purchased. It had to immediately be surgically reconfigured instantly, from rescue straight to an ICU type unit for surgical reconfiguration and intensive care. You might be wondering, what in the world does it take for a human being to become capable of somehow in the world finding great pleasure in things I am not even going to describe?
They have had to have become inhuman.
Inhuman.
I don't know. There is no answer for that question.
But there is an answer for how a lot of these people get there, and we can talk about that in just a minute. So 90% of these children, 50%, I mentioned this earlier, will statistically never see loved ones again. Roughly 80%, of the young men will become incarcerated right away because they have no life skills. They've never been prepped with any possible pathway to being a healthy, integrated member of society. They have no social skills, and worse, they carry a stigma. They carry a stigma, Randy. They're told these kids are from bad stock. This is the church doing this. They smell funny. We don't want them in our children's churches. We don't want them coming around. That kid is a ruffian. He comes from that one part of the neighborhood where nobody, better not do it. We got to get back to worship, boys. Crank up the fog machines. We got church to do. 70% of these young women that age out of the foster care, and again, I'm only talking about the ones that don't die while in the system. 70% of the young girls will become pregnant out of wedlock with babies, and I'll give you one guess where these babies will end up.
Right.
Almost statistically guaranteed that those babies will end up where? The foster care system.
Right.
These mothers have no coping mechanisms. They have no sense of maternal love. That's never been developed in them. They fear the day they will grow up and view their own daughters the same way that their mothers have always made them feel that they are viewed. Or worse, that their daughter will grow up and view them with the same hatred they hate their own mothers with. Do you see this vicious cycle of hurt people, hurt people, hurt people, hurt people? So the system at large, I just want to say, if you're a good person in foster care, if you're with Child Protective Services, and you are a person devoted to their rescue, and you got into that line of work because you want to see positive change, you're already part of the solution. I'm not disparaging you, and I'm not whole cloth making judgments about the foster care system. It's just like doctors. Randy, how many good, wonderful people do you know with the MD at the end of their name that got into that line of work to help people, right? They believe themselves to be helping people. And when it comes to emergency triage, car accident, post-emergency care, these to me in a lot of ways are heroes. We need those emergency triage 911 dispatchers, those people that can show up and make the bleeding stop and buy you time so that you can get out of the hospital, right? I'm not, when I say Babylonian construct, I don't want you to think if you're a person that wears blue or if you're a paramedic or a doctor, that I'm just whole cloth judging you. If you're with foster care, I'm just whole cloth calling you a part of the Illuminati. That's not what's happening here. I'm saying that the systems themselves are either overburdened or the places that we've turned for academia, the ones that control the pharmaceutical interventions that they're then going to message are necessary for the treatment of a disease, right? A universal one-size-fits-all approach to this autoimmune condition or this malevolent cellular activity. It's not the doctors, in my view, in a lot of cases, Randy. They're doing what they've been trained to do. It's the systems above them. So does that make sense?
Agree. Yeah, it does. We've got dozens, Joe, dozens of doctors knocking on our door looking for a way that they can do exactly what you just described outside of the system without being put in prison for doing it, without losing their income for doing it.
That's right.
We've quoted on this program many, many times a verse from 2nd Ezra that says, you can find a righteous person in any nation, but you cannot find a righteous nation. Same thing goes for the system. Within the system, we know there are righteous people within the system, but the system has failed to be righteous. And without God's people intervening, just like you're doing right now, just like your appendix in your book, without God's people intervening, the only default left is what? The failed system. It is the only default.
And it's because what happens when unmitigated power and wealth and bloat. What is the historical model of humanity, Randy, Rick? What have we seen? Israel forgot the Lord their God, right? And there was war and famine and pestilence. And then Israel remembered the Lord their God, and there was rain and surplus and healing, right? And then what happened? And Israel forgot the Lord their God, and a pestilence, and then they remember the Lord their God.
Health is true wealth. If you have it, you experience opportunities for abundance. If you don't, well, you don't. Join us every second Monday at 7 Eastern for a focus group on health through food. Get to know Tim and Naomi Havens as they guide you through excellent and relevant food education. Every second Monday of every month on shopyourfarm.com. Room name Food Health at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central. Let your food be thy medicine.
Human nature, and this is a universal fact, we were hardwired to pleasure ourselves. So whether that's food, whether that's adult, air quote, entertainment, people are hardwired for pleasure, right? Now, we weren't originally that way, so now you get into the fall of man in the garden, the sin nature. When God says, okay, you've disobeyed, now forever the serpent will snap at your heels. You're now living in a fallen condition until my return, right? Well, we were made perfect originally. We could commune with the animals and have communion and speak to the birds. And we had all kinds of senses that we don't even possess anymore because we betrayed the promise that God, or we betrayed God after he promised us the garden, right? Well, ever since the fall, now we're stuck in these stupid flesh suits, right? And we're hardwired for pleasure. And so when you remove the bumper rails, when you say, God, I refuse your conviction, I don't want to have your I don't want to have your Holy Spirit nagging me out of things. You mentioned a minute ago the body of Christ. Where is the body of Christ on this? Well, I will tell you, based on my research, nearly non-existent. In a lot of the old days with Royal Rangers, Missionettes, Awanas, child-based vacation Bible schools, a lot of this is in massive decline. A lot of those programs have just died up over the last 30 years. And I talked to my dad about this, Dr. Thomas Horn. Many of your viewers may remember him. And I asked him one day, I said, Dad, why do you think that children ministries are in decline? We moved to the Bible Belt of Missouri, and when I came out here, I honestly thought, Rick, we're going to have a surplus of our choice, like a buffet of child-focused ministries, man, from puppet stages and music, and like it's going to be your choice, right? Like, which one do you want? We struggled like we couldn't even see coming, struggle trying to find any church that did anything with kids, literally anything, right? And I was asking my dad, I said, we're in the Bible Belt. We left Portland, Oregon, thinking it was bad. And you know what he said to me? And it was very prophetic when he said it. He said, Joe, I think that the decline of child-focused ministries is pretty simple. Children don't have any money.
Yeah.
He said that it's not the kids that buy stuff. Oh, sure, they can pull on the pant legs of their mother and nag them to do something with money, but it's the parents that prioritize where the money gets spent. And he said, if you want to know,
go ahead.
He said, if you want to know what he thinks, he said, if you want to know what I think the church is prioritizing, you look at where they're spending their money. And what do you see? Giant entertainment-based churches with rock concert experiences and big billboards advertising what you're going to receive if you come on Sunday morning. Free coffee in the lobby, special discounts, instant access parking. You get to be a part of the club. We're a big church, so we've got coupons to the neighboring stores. And if you're a member, do you see what I'm saying? Like, yeah. It becomes all about what you're going to get if you go to church, and you'll receive this experience, and God will meet you right where you're at, and you get to be a part of this thing. And it's all about experiences and feelings and being entertained. And by the way, if you're a nice church that has the wherewithal to have a great worship and you've got some lights and stuff, I'm not disparaging you either. I'm just making the point that there is a massive decline in child-based programs. Now, when you add to what Barna just revealed, as recently as 2020, Rick, about the dark secret that the church is harboring. Would it blow you guys away if I told you that right now, Western civilization, the church, in addition to being nearly worthless on this subject, nearly non-existent on this subject, they're actually fueling the industries that are responsible for creating the demand for paid for interactions with children? Oh, Joe Horn, that's difficult, man. You better bring some receipts. That's quite an assertion that the modern Western civilized church is guilty for underwriting the very demand that is created by way of these industries we're going to talk about here in a second. Well, first of all, I got to set this up, and I don't know how much time we've got. I can do it quick.
Rick will let us know when we're drawing towards the end of the terrestrial radio.
Okay. I'll make it quick, and then if you want more details, we'll unpack more. But I got to do this in two parts. First, the porn industry, and then second, the church's involvement in that industry. Okay, so first, it's an irrefutable fact, and rather than belabor this into oblivion and bore people to death with monopoly money-sized numbers and statistics, it is an irrefutable fact that the porn industry has a direct correlative in fueling the demand for trafficking. It's just an irrefutable, age-old, timeless fact. You can do your own reading about it. It's in the book, and I explain this step by step. But for tonight, I'll just start with that reveal. It's an irrefutable fact. Now, how this is done, it's progressionism. People that are satiated temporarily with something they watch that gives them a fleeting moment of erotic gets boring very quick, right?
Right, no longer satiate.
They no longer satiate. It's one of the biggest Luciferian lies in the world that you can actually satisfy yourself, Randy. Right. Getting back to what I talked about in the Garden of Eden, the fall of man, and now this futile pursuit that you can satiate yourself to a level of satisfaction that ever lasts. It's that old saying, if you give a mouse a cookie, he wants a glass of milk. You don't give a mouse a cookie and he's satisfied. No, he comes back. Now he wants a bigger cookie. He wants more milk. He wants a second cookie, more milk, plus cake. Second cookie plus more cake, plus now chocolate. Now you see the progressionism. It's the same thing with the porn industry. Nobody hits a net zero, goes to level 1, and finds the same video entertaining for all of time. 1,000,000% you will find yourself escalating. Now you need multiple videos that present a completely different, new, scrambled form of erotic. Eventually that gets bored. You're bored out of your mind with your spouse. There's no reality in the world where you're interested in a perfectly attractive woman that has given vows to be with you for life, period. Or husband, if you're a woman. It's the biggest lie in the world that you can ever seek self-satiation and satisfy. Make sense? And
even the Rolling Stones knew that. Said they can't get no satisfaction.
Bingo. Well, and if you talk to most of the people on death row serving out life sentences for things they've done to other humans, ending their lives, maiming them forever, essaying them, or a combination of all of the above, almost all of them will say a universal fact is that it was the porn industry that was the first catalyst for when they began to dehumanize other humans. When these were no longer mother, sister, brother, daughter, these were playthings that only existed in order to bring that person pleasure, right? So there is no cap. You never reach, hey, I won the video game, I hit max level, I'm satisfied and I'm totally content. You will progress. And I feel like God wanted me to warn people in the book Innocence Shattered. Joe, I want you to tell the ministers that are up to this, that are playing with this, that ministers become monsters. And I've had people push back. Oh, no, Joe, I mean, come on. You can. I know some guys have been doing stuff for 15, 20 years. They haven't changed. I said, no, I'm telling you that's not possible. What I'm telling you is that some of these people have gotten better at masking what they've become. End of story. Now, you can push back all day. Joe Horn won't hear it. I've been in child advocacy too long. I know what I'm talking about. It's progressive, it's dangerous, and it does not stop. And because it is demonic, your thoughts will absolutely go to very dark places, places that you yourself 5 years prior, 10 years prior, never dreamed that you would go. The things that you think it could never be me, it could never, nope. Just give Lucifer access to your head, open portals constantly in your house. And what happens? God says, leave Ephraim alone. He's joined his idols. He withdraws the conviction of the Holy Spirit. And you know what? He gives you free will. You get to do whatever you want while you're punching this time clock. You can do whatever you want while you're here.
Did you have a comment, Rick?
Oh, I was just going to say,
there's eternal consequences that you don't get away with. Go ahead.
Correct.
Yeah. I was just going to say, there's a very popular series that you can find on YouTube. It's called The Dark Side of the Ring. Okay.
Rick, I have seen almost all of those.
So if you look up the one where they interview Jake the Snake Roberts,
okay,
he will tell you his testimony, the story of how he progressively got worse and worse and was looking for more and more, and and it got to the point where it became unnatural.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm supporting what Joe's saying. Yes.
And I agree. There are eternal consequences, and you can ignore them. You can redefine them. You can skirt around them, but that exists because you can't get away from the fact that the characteristics of porn, P-O-R-N, when played out, kill, steal, and destroy.
It's because
who are those characteristics of?
Yeah, and here's the thing. People are now, and I know we're running out of time, but people are literally now, and I promise you, this is a prediction. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not saying this is a prophecy. It's a prediction. I don't think we're even a decade. The decade's being very generous. I don't think we're even a decade away before people are arguing as proponents for the sexual exploitation of young people under the guise that now these are AI avatars. Therefore, we're not hurting anyone. And they're going to use AI avatar. They're going to use every amendment in the Constitution to push for this, Randy. And of course, I can see your eyes glaze over because you're already trying to build your own Christian nation, right? But in this system, that's what they will do. They will argue every amendment in the Constitution as proponent. Their argument will be, we can keep people off the streets from harming others. We can keep people hands off of little kids if we allow the legalization of these fantasies to be played out on AI avatars. I would say because you never remove the portion of this that is dehumanizing, your brain is still watching and receiving what looks identical to a human being. Your brain doesn't distinguish the difference, so you're still dehumanizing human beings. And I would suggest it's only practice for the real thing. You'll get bored with your stupid screen at home. You're going to play this out. You're going to find a peeping Tom becomes someone that's willing to assault someone else. They become less and less afraid. Eventually, even prison itself is not a deterrent for some of the people that absolutely they are bent on, willing to pay for, willing to abduct, find a neighbor. They are going to act this out. You see what I'm saying? Now, how do we get there? With the few minutes that we have left, it's too lazy to say, the destruction of the nuclear family. I blame godlessness and motherlessness and fatherlessness. Those are very important components, but I think that a lot of those are also a side effect of this other thing, and that is the adult entertainment industry, P-O-R-N. Okay? Now, I know I said that word earlier, and I think you can get away with saying it once in a while, but you can't say it 50 times, right?
Okay.
Now, you can play it on the platform, and they don't care about that, but you can't talk about it in the context of it being harmful. Isn't that ironic? They don't care if you play it or watch it, but you can't talk about it. Yeah, you can't talk about it in the construct of it being harmful. According to Barnett,
they would actually prefer that you do watch it and experience it, because then they've even got some things that they can hold you accountable to when they need to.
Troy Brewer. You know who Troy Brewer is? He's got a massive ministry that rescues kids out of tankers, and they literally go in and physically remove these kids from trafficking situations. And he was telling me just yesterday, and I'm not going to, it's his story to tell, and it was behind his paywall, so I'm not going to reveal any details at all that wouldn't be available to his subscribers. But he went and spoke before Congress, and they forbid him to speak about certain things. And his opening move was to do it anyway. And the minute he did, he was threatened. And by the grace of God right now, and I'll just leave it at that. But it is an industry. It is absolutely, the lobbyists, multi millions per year are thrown at our Congress to make sure this does not become a conversation. You know, we don't have any insiders, man. People think I have insiders with different administrators. And I don't have any of these insiders. We're external outsiders trying to push, you know, truth through this giant dark construct that's protecting itself.
Mm-hmm.
But let me end with this, because you turn to the church for hope. Where is the church in all of this? According to Barna Research from 2020, very highly reputable, they did an aggregate of information where they talked with pastors all across the United States, and their samples produced some mind-boggling reveals. And again, I disclaimer, these are only pastors and youth pastors who admit to regularly consuming PORN, and they found out that 57% of our senior pastors and 64% of our youth pastors admit to regular PORN use now, or have struggled with it in the past, with an absolute floor of no less than about 2 out of every 10, if you read the entirety of the work. And then it goes on to basically assert almost no churches have outreaches for this. Less than 1% of these pastors, Randy, I just said less than 1%, feel that they should even have to admit this to their churches or resign, right?
Right.
They feel that this can be, you know, there's to continue the shame cycle. God's working on us. We're going to work it out. Or I'm going to seek counseling, but I shouldn't have. This is embarrassing. And, you know, look, the God is doing some things in our church. He's clearly using me anyway. No, he's working around you.
Right.
Because he sees the heart of the people coming to your church. And he says, I'm not going to withhold my spirit from that woman or that man. But think of how the spirit could thrive if he wasn't competing with the portals that you're opening in your office and in your home. This is why I say in Matthew, when God separates the sheep from the goats, I want to be a sheep. I pray that I'm a sheep. What does he say the criteria for that is, Randy? Do you remember? I was hungry and you gave me meat. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was naked and you clothed me. I was sick and in prison and you visited me. Enter in.
Mm-hmm.
Then he turns to the goats in what to me is one of the most terrifying and sobering passages of all of Scripture.
It is. Absolutely.
Because I will tell you what it says, and then I'll paraphrase. He says, I was hungry and you gave me not meat. I was naked and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not visit me there. And what you did not do for the least of these. Who are the least of these? The orphans and the widows and the sick and the downtrodden, those that can't help themselves. That's the criteria of the gospel. That's it. We've made it about entertaining ourselves to death. We've made it about fog machines and rock concert worship experiences and coffee in the lobby. But what is the actual gospel? I'm not disparaging churches that have the resources to do fine furnishing things like that. But if we fail to do this other part, we are a goat. We have to witness to the orphans. We have to minister to the widows. We have to stand in the gap and fight for their safety and make sure that make sure that they're nourished, make sure that God is introduced to them so that they're shown love and affirmation, right?
Right.
When you don't do those things, you don't meet the criteria for the gospel, which is very simple. And then he says the most frightening words in all of Scripture, depart from me, I never knew you. So now here's Joe Horn's paraphrase. If I'm making this about me, and I'll just share in this, I'll use me as the protagonist here in this hypothetical. Here's what I hear in that passage. But Lord, didn't we write books? Didn't we author DVDs? Didn't I go on TV? Didn't we do all this stuff in your name? Man, if you're not doing the work of the gospel to minister to the orphans and the widows, he says, depart from me, I never knew you. Depart from me, I never knew you.
Lord, Lord, in your name we did all these wonderful things.
And again, if you have a TV ministry and you don't work directly in a soup kitchen, I'm not disparaging you either. Please understand what I'm saying. When your ministry is focusing on embellishing you, you're a goat. You're a goat. When your ministry, even if it's via podcast, is about preaching the gospel, Rick, like you do every week, Randy, to the four corners of the world, you don't have to volunteer to work at a soup kitchen to meet with Joe Horn's criteria. This is straight out of Matthew. You're doing the work of the gospel. You're reaching the orphans. You're ministering to the widows. You're giving them hope. You're sharing the love of Jesus Christ. You're saying, you know what? Hey, you were put here. You don't understand this place. Without God, you never will. The reason you're unhappy is because you were designed to be subservient to a creator. And until you meet him, you're never going to be happy. Let me introduce you to him. You can do that on a podcast. That's the gospel. Make sense?
Right.
So I just want to bring clarification to that. But I see God, and I'm not pretending to know, a tenth of what he knows. So this isn't me role playing that I'm the Messiah or that I have a Messiah complex and could tell you what is in his head. But, and I don't know if we're over time here.
You're good.
But I'll finish with this. I believe that scripture gives us multiple examples. Ephraim has joined his idols, let him alone. I think we have a scriptural instruction here to preach the gospel, stand in the gap for orphans and widows. In the appendix of the back of my book, Innocence Shattered. Yes, there's some heavy topics in this book. If you want to, just skip to the back. Skip straight to the back and go to the appendix, because what it does is it does something different than The Sound of Freedom. It does something different than all these other videos and documentaries on trafficking, forced prostitution, and everything else, Randy. There's an appendix that walks the reader through a very thoughtful series of thought exercises, flushing out basically the reality that I don't care if you're man, woman, old, young, money, no money, wealth, land, nothing. God will use you the minute you say yes to stand in the gap for a child there in every community. And there's gazillions of ways to do it. It doesn't have to be the model that we're doing at Whispering Ponies Ranch. There's a million ways to give God your yes. It's in the book. And you can do it.
Welcome to Stone's Throw Acres. If you enjoy nature as God intended it, you'll feel right at home. Here on this ranch, work and play are one and the same. We enjoy working in and with God's nature, not against it. We wouldn't be telling you the truth if we said it was easy, but the fruits of our labor are worth every ounce of effort. We are excited to show you our little ranch. Join us at www.shopyourfarm.com and find the store at Stone's Throw Acres. There, we will supply you with nutrient-dense foods at a fair price. Here at Stone's Throw Acres, our mission is to work with and not against God's nature to restore the soil's health and give life-giving properties. As we achieve this mission, we work towards our vision in providing an opportunity for all people to have nutrient, natural, dense foods at a fair price. Come to Stone's Throw Acres today at shopyourfarm.com. Hey, Joe, would you tell us exactly, especially for the people that aren't watching, you listed underneath your name that you're the CEO of Skywatch TV. Would you tell us the places that people can find you and how people can even contribute if they want to what you call it, Whispering Pony?
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Rick. Yeah, I'm the CEO of Skywatch TV. Randy's been to many of the tapings, and I will concur that you are my brother. Randy's one of my, you know,
I know.
Should I tell people what I've said? I probably shouldn't. If Randy survives me, my wife has a message for him and he knows what it is.
Right.
Randy is truly one of my all-time favorite humans on this planet. I love his heart. I love what he's doing. He's come to the tapings. He supports Skywatch TV. We just love you, man. I love you. I got a very short.
The feeling's mutual.
I say I'm blessed to have thousands and thousands of friends all over the world. Many of them are Skywatch family, friends and family that I'll never get the privilege of meeting face to face. But of the ones I've got to meet, Randy's one of my favorite. He's one of those.
I said earlier, Joe, sometimes we don't talk for a long time, but there's also a chance that, hey, the phone rings, it's Randy or it's Joe. We might go till 2:00 in the morning.
No, that's right. No, that's very easy with Randy to just, you keep, I got to get off, man, and then another 30 minutes.
Right.
like I'm doing right now when Rick only wanted my website and it's been 4 more minutes. If people want to learn more about how they can support the ministry of Skywatch TV and its mission to carry the gospel of Jesus Christ to the 4 corners of the world, they can go to skywatchtv.com. Very easy to find. If you want to learn more about what we do charitably with these children that we're doing Christ-centered rehabilitation, work with, you would go to, again, skywatchtv.com, and there's a link at the top that'll take you to, if you want, Whispering Ponies Ranch. But you can also just go to whisperingponiesranch.com. It's not open to the public. It's a ministry that handles its affairs behind closed doors, locks, guards, gates. We have biological parents looking for the children that we serve. Tours are very limited. It's by invitation only with security. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like the kids we serve, we have cases that we're not permitted to speak about publicly. But the point is, and I'm only offering that because people will ask, well, how do I come see the place? You can see parts of it online if you go to our YouTube channel. There's safe video that we've approved for public consumption where you get to see the children climbing rock walls and doing Christ-centered rehabilitation camp at the zip line or the indoor swimming pool. And by the way, we make this available to ministries like Royal Family Kids at no expense to them whatsoever because of our donors and our supporters. So we don't make a dime. We're not charging per the head for these kids to come in. This is a program that we're allowed to do because of our donors and our supporters making it happen. So we bring kids in via Royal Family Kids, man. We teach them about Jesus. We have policies like Too Deep, where no child, no exceptions. It's an immediate termination of you as a volunteer or a worker. Too Deep, 2 adults to every child at all times, always. No excuse. We grill this in so the kids are safe. They're always in an environment, usually where there's 2 to 8 adults with every group of kids, but never any less than 2. We've got bathrooms that have been built in proxy to where the kids are staying overnight. So that they're never alone. They don't have to go off, like a conventional campground with multiple adults in the middle of the night to traipse up a hill to use the restroom. Like all of our facilities were built per Wayne Tesh, the founder of Royal Family Kids, his specs, his ask, this is what we would want if we could just build whatever we would dream. And my father and my mother, through the donations and support of God's people, built it and made it happen. And of course, we lost my father in 2023, and now I'm the new CEO that has stepped in to carry his mantle. And we just finished one of the most, Randy, how do you expect? I can't do it in 10 seconds, but one of the most unbelievable ministerial seasons that the camp has ever seen this year, man. The Spirit of God, you couldn't get out of your vehicle and step toe on Whispering Ponies Ranch. And we had guests and volunteers and psychologists and therapists saying, man, there is something different this year. This place has a palpable, you can feel the presence of God. And we haven't even started the camp.
Wow.
And, I got so many stories and so many things, but I've probably already drugged your audience into like 15 minutes of overtime. So I'm going to stop.
So much. And I know Randy's got smoke coming out of his head. He's got something to say. but I got to go here because
I understand.
You've talked about so many things, and this is such a nuanced subject. Man, where do you even start? Because you talked about foster care, but we didn't really even get into the things like these very well-known huge churches that are well-known traffickers of children. Well known because there's literal testimony coming out of them that they are, and rather than say their name here for the sake of YouTube or whatever, is your book one that's going to dig into that arena as well, talking about how mega churches actually contribute to the trafficking of children?
So what it does, actually, I'm glad that you asked that. I would say probably 45% of the book is literally focused on the church's dark secret and its indulgence in not only the PORN industry, but its help and assistance peripherally and directly in the forced prostitution of children. We tie all of this together. And in a longer format than the way I just collapsed it. I did not specifically mention a mega church, if that's what you're asking. Right. But I'm not divorcing mega churches from these statistics. This is all pastoral ships across the U.S. So to me, it's irrelevant if you're in a big building or a little building. Right. This is literally, and we didn't even talk about the laity in the church. Right. I only talked about the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I put it at a very conservative half of adults based on my research. I surmise that it's probably very close to about half. And it's because different groups have different data and they're all in the book. So I don't know if that answers your question. I didn't make a case that in particular the mega church has some backdoor secret organization that's funneling kids.
Right. Although there's quite a bit of testimony coming out of some of them that they do. But so what I'm also getting at is what we've talked about tonight is the low-hanging fruit. To get higher into the tree where the fruit is really ripe, we have to start talking about things like, private governance. Okay, because we talked a lot about the political system. We talked a lot about the Babylonian system. We talked a lot about how it's working towards an agenda that may or may not seek to help children. Okay. We talked about executive orders, so on and so forth, but that's the low-hanging fruit. There are private governing organizations and corporations, by the way. Some types of corporations fit into that construct that I'm talking about, that are responsible in a high percentage of being the apparatus that's used to move children from place to place to place. And there's just so many nuances to this, Joe. I'm not sure that you could actually cover it in 3 days.
There's the conversation that I could have with you not on a broadcast.
Okay.
You're right.
You understand what I'm saying? And it's not because I'm a coward or I'm not willing to say, here's what it is. This is a fact.
Yeah.
The government does not like to keep records that they load to the NIH or to .med or .gov. They're not going to put or distribute their own statistical involvement in this, right? So that leaves it up to anecdotal or testimonial, or when you know people that work with people that can say, matter of fact, I was told by, let's just say, Homeland Security that this is what has been happening. And that no one anywhere in government is going to tell you that this is happening. And so there are words that I would tell you, there are things that I would tell you not in a broadcast, not because I'm afraid or that I'm a coward, but because, not like for my life, but the legal implications of making an assertion without what they would consider irrefutable proof, even if they're guilty.
Right.
And who controls irrefutable proof? What court system, Randy, does that have to go through before we have what is considered irrefutable factual proof?
The injustice.
And so this is where we can innuendo, and I can telegraph what I think is happening, what I have been informed is happening, but I will not be able to produce the kind of documentation that 90% of the Babylonian construct will even receive. And the reason why it's kind of difficult to do that is because then you beclown yourself. Anytime you step out of, like, everything we've talked about is an irrefutable fact. You can go look this up right now. There's organizations right now that have tracked and data and the and the missing children and the number of the foster care system, blah, 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 and the general populace and the abuse cycles. And then here's the handlers of forced prostitution. There's data for that. Most of it third party or organizations that have made it their life's work to aggregate information when they're working with local governments. And then you extrapolate those figures out throughout the United States. That exists. But when you get into words that I won't say on the air, I have my beliefs based on what I've been told. But when you have a system that controls what is considered science and what is considered medical data and what is considered the true numbers about missing children and the true methodologies wherein traffickers abduct children and they're the ones that have appointed themselves to be the publicists for what is true. Man, that's all that's going to stack up against. That's all you're going to have when they're stacking you up in court. They're going to say, "Where's your proof of said assertion?" Mm-hmm. And now they're coming after you for damages. You've maligned our character. I mean, look what. I got to stop talking, man. I'm just telling you, and this is not to be secretive or to shock value or thumbnail or anything, but is this making sense, Rick? It's.
I'm with you.
They're going to say, and most of the population, when you can't produce the documents, and it's the same thing with disease, by the way. I could have like 8 friends in the last 5 years not do the standard of care for their very malevolent cellular disease, completely see it gone through natural herbs that God has given us, like black seed oil, Essiac tea, soursop tea, anti-parasite protocols, vitamin C drips, right? And the first thing that someone in that system listening to their traditional doctor, or when I say traditional, you know what I mean.
Yes.
Standard allopathic, what is considered normal medicine in the United States, they're going to talk to their doctor about that. The doctor's going to scare them into a hysteria and say, Joe Horn is insane. It's the most dangerous thing. And they're going to start reciting the National Institute of Health as their authority for what. And those, by the way, numbers will be self-fulfilling numbers.
Yeah.
They will be a self-fulfilling aggregate of the number of people that won't succeed, the number of people that will. 30% it'll come back, 40% it'll do. But if you do this, then you get 50%. And it's because you're talking about people that are just being funneled into these number gates. They don't have a record of my friend right now, who I will not name because it's not my journey to share about, who is being accosted by every human at her mega church, every person in her family, including her own daughter, saying, you're a hippie, you're out of your mind, what are you doing, why don't you fight? And by the grace of God, what they told her had a next to 0 chance of survival and 0 chance without their program has now seen one of the developments completely disappear and the larger one shrink by 70%, using God's medicine and going like this to Babylon. La, 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 la. I can't hear it. And these are people that love her and they mean well and they're praying for her, but they have so grown up in a world that isn't even real, Randy.
Absolutely.
It's not even real, man. It's fake media. It's fake medicine. It's fake. It's fake. Everything is completely fake. To me, it's as real as the Matrix. It's like being pulled out of a matrix. And once you're out, you just can't unsee it. So I would surmise that, and I use that as an example because in health, guys, and you asked, this is why I'm answering. In health, you see the same thing. Show me where your case studies or trials or blind placebo control, show me where that evidence is. And mostly what you're going to find is a great deal of fear and skepticism about the very things that I have personally watched work for autoimmune disease, cellular malevolence, and
you're talking Rick's
it's
language
the same
now.
when you get to trafficking. The controllers of the government websites that everybody heralds as the gospel truth on everything we know about everything, and it's the first place you run to make sure that you're fact checking or qualifying. What you're going to see is gazillions of anecdotal testimony. You're going to see finger pointing and people willing to swear to an affidavit or pass a polygraph test that this is what it is. And you just need one agency to say, well, there's no evidence of that. And 90% of the people living in Babylon will go, see, there's no evidence of that. So right. I know I didn't answer you, but I hope I answered you.
No, you're talking about gatekeepers. That's what you're talking about. You're talking about gatekeepers. Go ahead, Randy.
Well, and I know what you're bringing into this, Rick, and I'll let Joe know this, that in the house of Dehijo, because each of us has set up a house with a private administrative process and self-legislating. And the same thing is true here. We can give you many, many anecdotal testimonies of how self-governance, self-legislating, private administrative process literally works. I could tell you a story that happened to me last week. Rick's house, his wife is and correct me if I'm wrong, an herbologist.
Yeah. Is she an herbalist?
She's an herbalist.
So you're talking his language. So we understand what you're saying. Absolutely. And that high hanging fruit, literally off air, Rick could tell you stories of how self-legislation diverted and some of the things that big party that happened back in 2020 when they wanted everybody to get a certain product through a needle.
A vitamin.
That big party, that vitamin shot they wanted to give everybody back in 2020. Literally self-legislation, how strong it actually worked. But something I want to maybe we'll wrap this up a little bit. One is the mega churches and the church members, the little building, the big building, the in-between building, it doesn't matter. We have a system, we have grown so cold, as you described, the history of the Hebrew children. We're close to God, we're far away, we're close, we're far away. And that whole cycle of history that we've done, we have gone through cycles so that we have generations, not singular, but plural, generations of people who have grown up with an arrested development. They are children in adult bodies. They can't cope with real life. They can't cope with politics. They can't cope with their own healthcare. They can't cope with their own children. And the second thing, when you use the term portal in reference with porn, that's huge. That is huge to use the term portal. We just did a show 3 weeks ago, maybe, with Vicky Joy on the threshold covenant. Because if I'm the overseer of my house and I've established my house and I say I am one of those peculiar people and I am the priest of my house and I am part of that holy nation and I'm an ambassador of Christ without being treasonous in that role, then I have to guard the threshold of my house. And I am responsible for what gates are open or portals are open. So it's huge when you use the term portal. It's really a marriage of what we're teaching here to the content of your book and the content of your talk tonight. Yeah. And I will tell you one more little quick story rather than a poem, Rick. This is a true story, and I'll make it as short as possible. In my own living room, a young lady, and we're teaching her, she's out of the system now. She's aged out. Where do I go? What do I do? And she's fighting a conservatorship and trying to get into a trust that she's blocked out of, all kinds of difficulties. This young lady, I'm trying to teach her how to unregister from the system so she can be free of it and do what she needs to do. I'm talking about a young lady who, to my face, said, I don't remember how many times I was on that flight to Little St. James Island. Okay. Literally can't count the times. And when I described to her what unregistration means and how she can become the administrator of herself rather than letting this system continue to administrate her, these are her very words, Joe. You mean if I do this, they can't do those things to me anymore. That's why you do what you do. That's why we're doing what we do. And that's why we wanted you on the C2k report, because we're serving the same king and we have the same goals.
That's right. Well, gentlemen, thank you for having me tonight. I really appreciate it. This has been cathartic. I don't want to say it's been fun, because when you're dealing with really difficult conversations, I don't think fun is the right way to framework it, but meaningful. And I appreciate you accommodating what God has called me to share with people and to warn the church. To warn the church, porn will take ministers and turn them into monsters. And if you think that you're able to click away on that type of content or entertainment, I want you to imagine a sea of children looking back at you every time you reach for the mouse, locked in dog cages, screaming to you to please stop supporting the industries that are in part responsible for why they are waiting their next abuse cycle.
Right.
If that doesn't rattle you as a self-proclaimed minister of the Lord, I don't know, man. It's not my job to tell you where you're at in your judgment, but Ephraim has joined his idols. Let him alone. You do not want to be a goat.
Amen.
Thank you, Joe. Has been a great pleasure to meet you for the first time. And now I have a face to put with the voice, so that's always a good thing too. Randy, no poem tonight, like you said, but do you have, a final farewell that you want to throw out at your good friend Joe?
Yeah, absolutely. Joe, thank you very much I know that this little show that you're on tonight is you don't need us to help push this book. You have you're in such demand. Thank you for being such a great friend, for coming on with us, for letting us interview you, and thank you for your message. Thank you for your heart. Thank you for letting me be a part of your family. And we've got to get together some other time, because you and Rick have got a lot to talk about when it comes to Trinity
We've
Wrestling
got a
America. You
lot of
got a
stuff.
lot
That's
to
right.
talk about. So thank you for me and Rick, for the C2k Report family. It is a clash of two kingdoms. You have literally shown us the battleground tonight for this clash of two kingdoms. C2k Report stands for the Clash of Two Kingdoms Report. So that's why we got this report, folks. You got the report tonight. You got the report of this clash of two kingdoms. The choice is yours. I mean, choose you this day whom you will serve. That's the choice.
Everything we do here at the C2K Report, it's all about the blood. See you next time. God bless.